Like any other game, Animal Crossing has its fair share of unexpected glitches. Some are minuscule and aren't all that notable, others can be super useful, and others can just be downright crazy. Today, I want to go over the glitches that gave New Leaf a little more pizzazz. Now, many of these glitches were patched upon the release of the Welcome Amiibo update in 2016, but they did make the game quite a bit more enthralling for the few years they existed. Let's go over as many as we can in today's video. First, I think we should start off with the foundation for a number of glitches I'll be covering in this video. I am, of course, talking about none other than the net glitch. Now, to be frank, while I love New Leaf, I gotta say the collision in this game was held together by duct tape and glue back then, as there were a plethora of ways you were able to go out of bounds. See, for some reason, if your player moved at an incredibly slow speed against any wall, the collision didn't kick in. Now, moving slowly without holding anything was still a little too fast. However, when you moved as slow as you could with a net in your hand, this would be just enough to ignore the collision and get you anywhere out of bounds. There were a lot of possibilities with this glitch. You could use it to swim without a wetsuit, get on top of buildings, or my personal favorite, run from the oncoming train. Now, it took maybe around half a minute to a full minute to complete this glitch, and any quick change in pace would send you back to square one, so you needed to be pretty patient to make it work. Nintendo did try to patch this glitch in Welcome Amiibo, and while they mostly succeeded, players quickly found that you could dig a hole next to where you wanted to go out of bounds, and the net glitch would work again, relying on the hole for support. Of course, this means the net glitch is heavily limited now, but not entirely patched if you want to try this yourself. One way you could have used this net glitch, though I doubt you would have wanted to, was for another glitch I'll be talking about right now. First, you would use the net glitch to glitch yourself on top of the tall cliffs to the left or right of your town, depending on your layout. From there, if you went as far off-screen as you could, walked over to the ocean, and equipped your fishing rod, you could fish normally. However, after pulling up your bobber, if you switched to another tool like the watering can and used it, this confused the game, and rather than your new tool using its intended animation, it would instead be thrown like a fishing rod. Now, here's the reason I say I doubt you would have wanted to use this glitch. See, when you use your fishing rod normally, the game waits for the bobber to hit the water before you can regain control of your player. However, when you used another tool in this glitched manner, the game would wait for a bobber that didn't exist to hit the water. This would cause your character to become permanently stuck, soft-locked using a random tool as a fishing rod until you quit the game without saving. I believe this had something to do with your character being off-screen while changing tools, because your tools would still work normally if you tried this glitch while your player was on-screen. Furthermore, I tried to replicate this in Welcome Amiibo, where the camera is set to follow you anywhere, and it didn't work. So, like the net glitch, this was only a glitch you could replicate pre-Welcome Amiibo. Back then, if you weren't interested in paying Captain 1,000 bells to catch some bugs on the island, and it was summer in your town, there was an interesting workaround if you were willing to put in the time and effort. And yes, this involves the net glitch again. 3 times actually. The first step was to use the net glitch to glitch onto the train tracks. Now, when it comes to the stairs leading to Main Street, you were supposed to step into this specific area to be able to transition between your town and Main Street. However, by essentially bypassing this area, you can run up the stairs, and instead of entering Main Street, you enter this area with a completely invisible ground, commonly referred to as the Abyss by New Leaf players. Now, with the invisible barrier preventing you from going any further into the Abyss, you would use the net glitch again to glitch on top of it. Right after you did that, there was yet again another invisible wall that you once again had to glitch past. And with any luck, you would end up falling into a strange area where you were now under the south side of your town due to the cylindrical shape of your town. Your player would be shown roaming the Abyss, but using one of your tools would reveal the land above you. Though you had to make sure you didn't run into any holes or pitfalls on the surface, otherwise your player would return to their normal position. Okay, with all that context out of the way, what does this have to do with this so-called infinite bug glitch? Or, as I like to call it, the infinite bug. Well, the thing is, while your player was under the map, things like your footsteps would still appear on the beaches, almost as if you were in 2 places at once. Now, remember when I said your town needed to be in summer for this to work to your advantage? Well, with any luck, if you had palm trees lining your shore, you would eventually find a rare beetle on one of them. If you used your footprints as a guideline, you could actually catch the bug on the tree, but it got even better. No matter where you swung your net from there, you would always catch the same bug over and over again until your pockets were full, to which the glitch stopped. Now, you may think you would have been stuck here, but actually, if you saved and continued, your character actually fainted and woke back up in front of their house. My guess is that the developers coded some kind of failsafe in case your character got stuck in an invalid area. You could then sell your newly caught bugs to retail for essentially the price of just one. This was mentioned in my previous video, but I'll go over it one more time since I thought it was interesting, and it hasn't actually been patched in Welcome Amiibo yet. When you complete a public works project and choose to hold a ceremony, depending on the time of day, up to 4 villagers will be in attendance. Typically there's plenty of space for them to attend, and if there isn't, either less villagers will be in attendance, or they'll have shuffled around a bit. However, there's a tiny oversight when it comes to building a public works project as close as you can to your town's highest cliffs, north of the waterfall. With small public works projects, the game typically reads the area you put them in as valid. However, if you choose to hold a ceremony upon the project's completion, you might notice that there are only 3 villagers in attendance as opposed to 4, but this isn't actually the case. See, when the ceremony ends, all you have to do is take a look atop the cliff to see the 4th villager. Until you save and quit, or until they go to sleep for the night, they'll be stuck up there, not moving, for the rest of the day. Hopefully you didn't have to make a delivery or anything. Alright, we're gonna take a break from the net glitches for now. Out of bounds glitches though? No. This one was also patched in the Welcome Amiibo update, but this glitch relied on the mechanic of tripping and falling, which can be done either by waiting for a bad luck day, or by purchasing a King Tut mask at the Able Sisters for 10,000 bells. The idea was to find a diagonal part of your river and dig 2 diagonal holes. You would then bury an item in one of the holes, and by carefully positioning yourself, you could dig up the item and put yourself between the 2 holes and the river. After the 9.5 magnitude earthquake in the background, you would run in the direction of the river, and with any luck, or I guess lack of luck in this case, your character would fall into the river. You had to make sure you ran in the right direction though, otherwise your player would fall into one of your dug holes, essentially creating a pitfall and adding insult to injury for your failed glitch attempt. The only kinda payoff to this was making fishing a little easier since you didn't have to run back and forth between bridges. But if you hit save and continue, or if you simply walked back onto the grass or a bridge, that was the end of the glitch. The Welcome Amiibo update changed the mechanics of tripping slightly, making it so you'll never trip and fall while running towards an obstacle like this. Now, before we get into the 2 major duplication glitches in this video, I want to give some honorable mentions to a few smaller glitches first. If you're being followed by a mosquito, you can find somewhere to sit in your town, whether it's a rock, bench, or a stump. Then, once the mosquito reaches you, pull up your reactions menu and pick any of them to use. This causes a split second of vulnerability where the mosquito stinging action is prioritized over the reaction itself, causing your player to get stung by the mosquito. However, there's no animation for being stung by a mosquito while sitting, so your player will actually just clip through wherever they were sitting. If you used the net glitch when it was still available, you could glitch on top of a tall Main Street building like the Able Sisters and look up, and a part of your bottom screen would actually be visible at the very top of your top screen. In exceedingly rare cases after online gameplay sessions, there was a chance of a fruit basket in a player's inventory glitching out, causing it to be shown as a basket with 0 fruits. However, if you clicked on this basket and grabbed a fruit from it, this basket would remain as a 0 fruit basket while you still got the extra fruit, essentially creating a glitch for obtaining infinite fruit. This is especially helpful with non-native perfect fruit, as since one goes for 3,000 bells, you can essentially create as many duplicates as you want to earn bells fast. Now, those who played New Leaf Online are probably, unfortunately, all too familiar with this Rossetti screen that appeared when there was some kind of break in someone's internet connection. When this happened, any data that wasn't saved in the online session up to that point was completely lost. But it didn't take long after the North American/European release of the game for people to find a way to turn that resetti screen into something useful. See, you would visit another player's town with likely an inventory full of expensive/important items, like rare flowers, bells, and/or golden tools. Upon doing this, you would drop all of those items onto the ground, and once you were done, the host would end the online session. The visitor would then wait for the saving screen to appear, and once the little indicator made it about one cycle, they would flip the wireless switch on their 3DS, effectively instantly shutting off their 3DS's access to the internet, thus causing the resetti screen to appear not even a second later. On the visitor's end, the game did not save, therefore, their game is reverted back to its state prior to visiting the host's town, with all the items back in their inventory. On the host's end, though, you would think their session would also crash too, but as it turns out, the game would finish saving on their end, and they would return to find the items the visitor put on the ground still there. Since there were now two versions of the items, one in the visitor's pockets and another in the host's town, there were now, effectively, duplicates of each item. There were other ways to optimize this glitch, like taking extra items out of your train station storage. But this was a bit of a time-perfect glitch, depending on your internet connection. If you were too late to flip the wireless switch, the game would save on both ends. But if you were too quick, the game would crash on both ends. This was one of the glitches patched in the Welcome Amiibo update in 2016, but people had a few fun years of giving each other extra rare items and flowers when save editing and in-game hacking wasn't popularized. For a few months after the release of New Leaf in Japan, there was a really quick and simple way you could get duplicate items without even going online, and it involved buried items. See, your game is easily able to handle digging and burying items in an open area, but in a weird bug, if you have too many patterns and trees condensed in a single area, the game stops reacting normally to your player's interaction with certain tiles. For example, you might try kicking away your pattern or digging a hole, but the tile doesn't properly update, leaving it exactly the way it was before, or causing a really weird glitchy sound. What people discovered is that you could dig a hole, fill it with money or rare items, and surround that buried item with paths and trees, essentially causing it to become a glitched tile. At first, you can't really interact with it, but once you reload the area by saving and continuing, you can excavate the item, and while your player successfully digs the item up, albeit invisible typically, there is still a version of the item buried, essentially creating a duplicate. You can then do this as many times as you want, and once you're done, you can kick away the surrounding paths to make the glitched tile return to normal. This is one of the more fascinating New Leaf glitches in my opinion, despite the fact I was never able to try it. This is because this glitch only existed in the 1.0 release of New Leaf, which was in service from November 2012 to March 2013 in Japan and South Korea. However, on March 3rd, Nintendo released the 1.1 update that patched this glitch entirely, and the North American and European releases in June came pre-installed with the 1.1 update, so we were only able to perform the online duplication glitch for a few years. Well, that'll be it for today's video on New Leaf glitches. I know I didn't cover all of them, so a potential part 2 may be in order in the near future, but I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something new. If you have a copy of New Leaf, maybe you can check out some of these unpatched glitches yourself. Feel free to like the video and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.